Ethelind Kaba is the Executive Director of the Ann Bancroft Foundation, which provides life-changing opportunities for girls across Minnesota. She leads the organization's strategy, partnerships, and fundraising to expand access and amplify girls' voices. Previously, she founded the StarGirl Initiative, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering teen and tween girls, for which she was recognized as a Changemaker by Minnesota Women's Press. She has also been named to the Twin Cities Business 100 People to Know list and recognized as one of Minnesota's 50 Black leaders to know. A passionate advocate for advancing human dignity and potential, Ethelind serves on the Augsburg University Board of Regents and previously served on the National Governing Board of the Jeremiah program focused on advancing economic mobility for single mothers. An immigrant from Ghana. Immigrant! Oh my God. I married one.
Yes, you did.
That's kind.
An immigrant from Ghana, she lives in Edina with her family, where she's still learning to love road trips. Please welcome Ethelind Kaba, who will join us tell us about the Ann Bancroft Foundation. And I must add a personal note. My daughter was at the South Pole, where I think she missed Ann Bancroft by 1 year.
Aww.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna try to project. We'll see how well I do, but first, let me make this into a slideshow. Let's see here. Okay. And I'm totally okay keeping it informal too, so I don't have to look at the slideshow and none of that. But first, thank you, Peggy, and truly thank you all for having me. I get to talk about two of my favorite topics. One is myself, and one is Ann Bancroft, actually three. So myself, Ann Bancroft, and then of course our work and why I think it truly, truly matters, especially in these times. So first, who am I? And how did I get to actually lead an organization that has a legendary Minnesotan, legendary global person name on it. So as Peggy mentioned, I'm originally from Ghana, West Africa. I moved here sometime 1998. I've been saying 97, and then I found a passport is 98. So about a month before my 18th birthday. And you know, growing up in Ghana, I've shared the story many times. I actually did not consider myself poor. Was raised primarily by my grandmother, but a lot of extended family, my mother, uncles, aunties, that is sort of, we had a really big family. While I didn't consider myself poor from a basic necessity standpoint, truly, I think that, you know, there was a part where as a child, I would go to school, sort of you wake up, you gotta go get enough water for the day before you go to school, and then after school, part of my job was either helping out my grand aunt at the market or taking crops that my grandmother had grown, so yams and things like that, and then going around neighborhood houses and trying to get them sold. So when you think about it from that perspective, definitely a lot more humble beginning. And growing up, by the way, how much time do I have? I could spend an hour on the slide, so let me, how much time do I have?
1:15.
1:15, okay. Then that way I can run through it a little bit. And growing up, you know, in this little, at the time I would consider it a village, now I would consider it a smallish town. I had this distinct dream of, I was going to be a human rights lawyer. I was going to work at the UN, overseeing children's rights, because I didn't think children needed to, you know, to be begging when cars stop, or working at the market, or doing any of the household chores. There might be a slight debate that I probably was dreaming that because I was quite lazy and I just really wanted to bury my face in books and not have to do any of the household chores that existed at the time. Nevertheless, growing up, that's what I wanted to do. And so very, very determined. Instead of the household chores, I would be, say I'm studying. And so as a result of that, I was able to get into one of the best boarding schools in Ghana, and Ghana follows the system of British, and so boarding schools are very much prevalent, and I was able to get in. And after high school, my family thought I would have better chances by moving to the US. And so I had family here, my dad, and so which is how I ended up here. Without going into the long and short of it, within a year, I found myself in and out of youth shelters, and then I found out that I was pregnant at 19, which was such a huge thing for my very religious family who had really put a lot of hopes and dreams. And as you can imagine, for me, that came with a lot of shame, a lot of about wasted potential, a lot of, all of the dreams I held for myself. Now what? I can tell you now that I am not a human rights lawyer for kids, but through a series of careers, people betting on me, people who said my name in spaces, continued my education in a very, very non-traditional sense, and that's pictures of my children, Yaira, who is 24, Khalil, who is 19, and then of course my youngest Zaina, who is 15. So with this slide, for me, it is all about how we advance economic mobility and how we live out our potential and how we live out our dreams, regardless of what the journey places in front of us, but most importantly, the people who actually bet on us and are able to help us to guide the way. And so for me right now, I am on the board of Augsburg University, very, very active in different ways because I value education and I value what it means to actually invest in people. Okay, and now then comes Ann Bancroft. How many of you know who Ann Bancroft is? Awesome, okay. Oftentimes when Ann's name come up, either you really, really know who Ann Bancroft is and adore her and love her, because I can't imagine how you would know her and not. I invited her to be here, but she has a conflict and so could not be here. Some people do think of Ann Bancroft in The Graduate, and I like to say my Ann Bancroft has a story of they actually used to get each other's fan mails at the same time, and then we'll send them back and forth to each other. But my Ann Bancroft, just a legendary explorer, first woman to reach both the North and South Poles. She's done several expeditions since, really bringing awareness to climate. Most recently, in March, she turned 70 this year, and in March she was doing an expedition with a long-time expedition partner, Leave, and they were with several women across the world. We're in New Zealand, again, raising awareness about rivers and mountains and connection to climate. And so after Ann's, and Ann has been very honest, she's a beautiful storyteller, and often talks about growing up dyslexic, classroom, very much struggling with that, and it took a teacher, back to again the people who bet on us, who really sort of encouraged her out of her shell with, show me how to do this, show me, very physical, basketball, cared all about the wilderness, loves animals. We have, right now on our website, if you go there, there's a link to Ann's 70th birthday page, and some of the stories in her own words are quite magical, so that's why I put that slide up there. Just such a magical human being. After her second expedition, the first one was with Will Steger. The second one, she was the only woman on that expedition, and afterwards decided to do an all-women expedition. And after the second one, we're really thinking about how she makes a difference. Ann went on to become a teacher actually before some of her expeditions, and she always would have a way of bringing kids along with her. And so they would print out all these curriculum have a way of just wanting to share back with students. So youth have always been very, very central. And so the board at the time thought, all right, you can't be everything to everyone with limited resources. So this, did not have our own personal money funding this. And so can you pick, a group of people that you want to focus on with your foundation? And so she decided she will focus on girls K through 12, often knowing that her own story sometimes of being undermined, of being undervalued, not enough skills, wanting to close the gender equity gap. How do we support young women to explore whatever it is they see for themselves? Does not have to be wilderness related, but how do we get them to explore their potential? How do we invest in that? What is the support system they need around them to do that? And so that was almost 30 years ago. Will be 30 years in 2027. And so that's how long the foundation has been around, and I've been the executive director running the day-to-day and sits on the board for the last 4 years. So what exactly do we do? Our big vision in the world is a world where every girl and gender-expansive youth gets to live out their potential. And the way that we do our work, we do it in 3 ways. We give out direct grants, K through 12 across the state. Twice a year they can apply. And it's tell me the dream you see for yourself. We don't tell them what it is you want to do. And so we get hundreds of applications where they're advocating for the dreams that they see for themselves. And then we award some, last year, 300 grants or so. And so we award those grants. There's a mentorship component in that we want you to start building out the supportive community. I'm sure if I asked all of you in here who's bet on you, who supported you, you know that we don't travel alone. If we want to get far, we go together. And so there's a mentorship component, and then we do several development opportunities. For the last 2 years, we've been doing a big convening of girls from across the state, and we call it our Girlhood Summit, and they come in on a Saturday, all day, different learning, they have mentors around the room. So that's primarily how we do our work, the grants, mentorship, and then ongoing development opportunities. Why is the work important? I like to put the slide there because it was a question I got one year where someone said to me, I see a lot more women in the workplace, a lot more women in leadership goals. Do we still need to sort of talk about gender equity? And my answer to that, I mentioned I have 3 children, they're all confident in their own way. My youngest, I like to say, probably does not need any more empowerment. She is set for life. However, the numbers, if you take out the individual achievements, the numbers actually show that there's still a lot of work to be done. The UN has 17 different goals it's outlined as a way for us to achieve global sustainability. And gender equity is on that list at, I think, number 5. Yes. Gender equality is number 5 because the UN has done a lot of research about how long it would, 9 out of 10 people across the world, it doesn't matter which country, hold biases against women. How long it will take at this rate is, I think, I want to say about 40 years for women to achieve the same political mass as men does. Like at this rate, it'll take another 40 years. Just right here in the US, we celebrate Equal Pay Day on March 25th. This year was on March 25th, but that's actually an Equal Pay Day is how long into the year women would have worked to have made the same amount as men the previous year. And so this year, that date is March 25th. However, that is for white women. When you break it down, it is July 10th for Black women, so you have to work until July 10th to actually make the same. For Latina women, it's October 8th, and for Native American women, Indigenous women, it is November 18th. So that's actually today. This is how long, and then now we're all sort of, I think I saw a meme that said, now women are just working free to the end of the year. So what some of these numbers tell us is that there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of building, number one, systems work, but individually, the lane that we take is how do we make sure that the next generation of women leaders are equipped with the skills, with the tools, with the confidence to be able to advocate for themselves. Yes, there's systems related work that needs to happen, but our lane is really on that next generation as they're coming out. And part of why that work matters too is even when we take youth and we break down, even when it comes to mental health, is constantly, I think I saw one of the most recent statistics, it's like 1 in 4 boys commit suicide. Like there's like girls are dealing with a lot of mental health crisis right now. A lot in cultural families, young women are taking on support for care for others and not as much paying attention to school. So even when you break down the number for young women, that's still a lot. And so for us, we find that work is absolutely crucial. So I talked about the slide. I will not go through it again. But this is our theory of change about what we believe in, which is when we invest in girls, we increase the 5 C's of positive youth development. This is a research 5C. And that is when we invest in them, we're building the competence, confidence, connection, character, and compassion that they need for positive youth development. And when we're able to do that, what it does is they're building skills that's helping them navigate their challenges today, while also laying the foundation for future success. So what do our grantees apply for? Everything. Again, we don't tell them how to be. Sometimes people go, are you sure you don't want to limit, focus on tech, focus on STEM, focus on art? I'm sure many of you in this room know you can have multiple strengths. You can be a CEO and still have played basketball, right? And so we don't limit it. We say, you tell me what it is. There are enough systems trying to tell you how to be. You tell me what you want to be. And so on the slide, again, we get hundreds of these. It's hard to always pick. Chloe is a senior at North Dakota, I believe, Fargo, and Chloe got a grant from us because she wanted to publish her own cookbook. Amazing. She started a youth farmers market when she was 14. It used to bake cookies, and then decided actually what she wants to do is build a household brand, and starting with publishing a cookbook. And so she's published her cookbook, which you can find. It's called Gather, The Foods That Made Me, and just a phenomenal human. We've got Anushka out in Rochester. Chloe is originally from Winona. Anushka out in Rochester, who wanted to build an app that tells you where to find litter in your neighborhood, and so went on to do that. We've gotten folks who want to travel, folks who want to take a writing camp, a music camp, basketball lessons, study type O to build confidence. We have folks who want to start a community garden and so want to buy all of the plants and seeds so that their neighborhood friends can come help from the community garden. And then my favorite story, so she was 6 at the time she applied. That was about 4 years ago, so about 10. Kira Lou applied and she wanted $2 to be able to buy an accordion music sheet. We did grant more so she could also take accordion lessons. But I love the story because you can tell when a child writes their own application, and I actually don't care how many words, I just want you to be able to share why. What is your dream? How will this get you closer? And for me, just a 6-year-old applying for a $2 music sheet is not about the dollar amount for her. It's about someone believing this and saying yes to the dream. Like, can you imagine the amount of confidence and how that actually builds you up, that you can ask for and advocate for yourself? So I love sharing her story as well. So I talked about traditional grant program. We actually have a second grant program. It's a higher dollar amount. The first one, I didn't say the dollar amount, is up to $1,000. We have a second grant. It's a higher dollar amount. It's a little bit more competitive. It's for alums. We pick 10 people. They come together quarterly for a full year. And we are in our 3rd year of doing this. And so the picture on our right-hand side where all of our fellows coming together in March, we're missing a couple there. The picture on the left with Ann, it was our 1st year of fellows, and we do this, our big fundraising event is in April every year. So these are just some pictures of some of our grantees. there's a video. Let me see if I can play it. If I can't, I will let it go. But I wanted to give you a break from my voice and share you Isabel's story. I always say I don't have favorites, you know, but I could pick some favorites, and Isabel will be one. I use a MacBook, so I'm trying to figure out, is it command or control? All right, let's see. If it doesn't play in about 30 seconds, I will give up on it, I hope.
Okay.
Today we are in Elsted Lutheran Church. My great-great-grandfather helped build this church. This is where I had my first concert at 5 years old, and it's where I will have my graduation recital. When I really know a piece and it just flows out of me, it's an incredible feeling. It's just ink on a page. It's just a wooden box. It's just horsehair going across the strings. And yet for me to bow the strings and place my fingers carefully and create something out of nothing is incredible. My name is Isabel. I live on a farm. I'm the 6th generation to work this land. My favorite thing is walking outside on a crisp early morning and just smelling the aroma of farm life. My precious dog will come bounding up. I can hear cows bellowing in the distance. If it's the summer, there are crickets chirping in the background as well. To work this land, to go out there in a tractor and combine or cut hay, bale it, rake it, whatever needs to be done. And a lot of these things might sound like chores, like you have to go outside and clean up the muck, but it really is a joy for me. My parents have been vitally important to my journey as a musician, as a farmer, and as an individual. They've driven me to lessons. Currently, piano lessons are an hour south, and violin lessons are 2.5 hours north. The opposite directions, and yet they're so willing to invest all this time and energy into me. I plan to use my grant to go to college to study violin and piano performance, then to come back and set up a studio so that children can come learn how to play the violin and the piano. One of my favorite things about playing my instruments is the ability to look back and see how far I've come. And having that freeing sense of ability to be able to create something out of nothing, to breathe and feel and convey human emotion. When music changes, society changes. And when society changes, music changes. If you watch the flow of music, you watch it through history, you'll come to see a greater purpose for music in our lives. It teaches you hard work, it teaches you cooperation and teamwork. It's a lifelong endeavor. So too is playing one instrument, let alone two. And music will always be with me throughout my entire life. My name is Isabel, and I am an Ann Bancroft Foundation Trailblazer Fellow. Imagining something bigger means to me to go further with my music, to really develop my purpose as a musician.
So that's Isabel's story, and we've got several stories, and part of what I hope came through, you know, Isabel, I don't know if she said this, but she, her farm is in Lindsboro, and And yet music lessons are very far, and she's not thinking about leaving home. She really wants to be able to set up studios so that other families don't have to do the long commute. Some people will not access, and so rural Minnesota, greater Minnesota, we care about increasing the number of grants that are also happening in those areas, just so that, again, they have the opportunities to live out their potential. And so it's why I absolutely love sharing Isabel's story, and we've got several of those on our websites as well. Let's see, I've got, so how's that work done? Sorry, give me a second here, okay. I always like to throw in a slide about how else can all of us support the girls in our lives. I would say give them a chance to share what they know, encourage them to apply for an Ann Bancroft Foundation grant, be mindful of the household responsibilities, right? And it's like we all have those biases. I have them. I remember talking to my son actually, and he said something about his science teacher. And I asked a follow-up question. I said, so what's his name or something? And my son goes, what made you think it's a he? And I thought, I of all people just committed. And then he responded, it is a he, but why did you? But they're very mindful of it, that we can all check our biases as well as we interact with these with younger, the next generation, I like to call it, right? I get to learn a lot from them personally. I mentioned we have our summit. We just held that on International Day of the Girl back in October. And we have sessions where they themselves are sharing what they care about, the types of change they're leading. You've got Ava and Clara, this was last year, but they got a grant from us and they wanted to buy goats so that they can milk the goats and make all of these like soaps and you know, all of these products. And so I've learned a lot, which is progress, not perfection. They care, they want to see who else is doing it. So representation is fuel. Sometimes in order to be it, you have to see it. And so our summit was also another chance where they got to see different careers, and our curator, a 26-year-old flight attendant, right? So they can actually start dreaming it for themselves. Access changes everything. I talked about Isabel. Sometimes if you want to dream something but you don't have access to it, it's hard. And now the times that we're living in, when food and gas and all of those things go increase, what gets taken away are some of these activities that build the resiliency that they need, and so they need the access to things. They're very, very courageous human beings, and they spread it around themselves when you see them together. And then to be able to dream, it's not a luxury. I always say to actually be able to step away from your current realities and dream something for yourself, that is leadership. How do you support our work? I like to throw this slide in there too and say, while we have foundation in our name and while we do grant making, we actually also are 100% supported by individuals and businesses. So we're typical traditional nonprofit. So it's Give to the Max Day this week. I know you're all getting 20,000 emails, but I always like to say, yes, growing with us by donating helps us to be able to do the grants and to be able to support the young women across the state. We do a big event every year. It is quite fun. It's in April 23rd of next year. And it is the most intergenerational room. It is a diverse room. You've got, one time I held a baby who was about 6 months old, but normally people will bring, their teens to this event. And so I'll say, if you want to go, feel free to email me, I'll let you know. And then I'll say just share our work, talk about it, especially for, again, I mentioned it earlier, for the young women, say, have you tried to apply for this? So that they can start even thinking about what's possible. I don't care, we don't care if they stay in the field. I always also like to share the story of someone I met who said, I got a grant to go to Florida to study manatees, and I'm so sorry, but I discovered that I actually don't want to be a marine biologist, and so sorry that you wasted the grant. And my response about it, I don't care. At least you figured it out, you took a risk, you tried something new, and that's crucially important, rather than spending your lifetime thinking you want to be a marine biologist. So Thanks for listening. Again, I could go on, but I know we're out of time, and I want to be able to pause for any questions you might have. Thank you. Any questions for me about Ann, about myself, about the foundation? No? Okay.
Oh, Gloria's got a question.
I do. Now, for the last few years, I don't know how long, there have been more women graduates in undergraduate in law and medicine than men. Are these young women still making less than men?
Yes, that's what the data is showing that they are.
Wow.
There's still a gap in that. Part of it, again, I never want to put the blame on the women by any stretch of the imagination, because part of it is the systems, part of it is bias, part of it is who's getting invited to what event to go mingle, part of it is the time you take away to, housekeep, whether children or anything like that. But part of it where, and a lot of people probably have seen this data, when you put a job description, men only have to maybe look at it 60% to say, do I think I can do that? It has been studied multiple times. They only have to be about 60% sure. 1, 2, 3, okay, I got this. Women have to sort of cross everything and get to 100% before they can say, yes, I can do this job. So personally, I tell my friends all the time, do you feel 60% ready to do this next thing? Do you think you're gonna learn the other within a year? Go for it, right? And so there are some of it that has to do with also where we're starting from, where, even though there are many women that are graduating in these fields, the pay gap is still there, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as a thank you, we give everyone a set of note cards.
Thank
These are
you.
students of Golden Valley.
Thank you.
So you can write your notes.
I
To
do.
your pen pal from Star Tribune from all of those years ago. And thank you,
That's
Mr.
very
Baker.
funny. Thank you so much for having me. I do love handwritten notes, so I will use them. Thank you.
All right, if you will join me